At the moment you buy a new phone, a laptop, a smart TV, or pretty much any piece of technology, a clock starts ticking. Not the clock on your device, a different clock, one that you never agreed to start, one that was started for you by the very company that sold you the thing in the first place. And when that clock runs out, your perfectly functional device suddenly becomes, according to them, obsolete. Today we are pulling back the curtain on something called the upgrade illusion, and by the end of this video, I promise you will never look at a software update notification the same way again. Let me start with a question. When was the last time your phone actually broke? Like physically stopped working, screen shattered, battery completely dead, device just would not turn on. For most people, the honest answer is either never or not for a very long time. And yet the average person replaces their smartphone every 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years for a device that could, in theory, last much longer. So what is actually happening here? Why are we constantly buying new things when the old things are still working? The answer is not laziness, and it is not stupidity. The answer is something far more calculated and far more fascinating. The upgrade illusion is the manufactured feeling that your current device is no longer good enough. Not because it physically failed you, but because you have been psychologically conditioned to believe it has. And the mechanics behind this are genuinely incredible. Companies have spent decades perfecting the art of making functional technology feel broken without ever touching a single component. Let that sink in. Your device works exactly the same as it did yesterday. Nothing changed. But after a software update, a marketing campaign, or a new product announcement, suddenly it feels slower, clunkier, more outdated. That feeling is not an accident. That feeling is the product. Now, before we go deeper, I want to give you something useful right now, because I think the most powerful thing you can do is understand the specific mechanisms at play. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. So let us talk about the first and arguably most famous mechanism, planned obsolescence. Planned obsolescence is the deliberate design of products to have a limited useful life so that consumers feel the need to purchase replacements. This is not a conspiracy theory. This has been openly documented, legally challenged, and in some cases, openly admitted by companies. The concept became widespread in manufacturing circles during the early 20th century when it was recognized that durable goods were actually bad for business. If something lasts forever, people only buy it once. But if it wears out, breaks down, or becomes unfashionable on a schedule, people keep coming back. In the world of physical goods, this is obvious. Cheap materials, glued components, non-replaceable batteries, proprietary screws that require special tools. These are all deliberate design choices that make repair difficult or impossible and replacement inevitable. But the really sneaky version, the one that affects every single person watching this video, is what we might call software-based obsolescence. And this is where things get genuinely dark. Here is how it works. A company releases a flagship device. It is fast, it is capable, it runs beautifully, people love it. 2 years later, the same company releases a new operating system update. This update is technically free. It is marketed as a gift, a way to keep your device current and secure. But the update is built for the new hardware, not the old hardware. So when you install it on your older device, the performance degrades. Apps take longer to open. The interface feels less smooth. Battery life drops. And then the company announces that next year, your device will no longer receive software updates. And just like that, your perfectly functional piece of hardware becomes a liability. Now, here is the thing that makes this even more interesting from a psychological standpoint. People do not just experience this as inconvenience. They experience it as shame. There is a real social stigma attached to using an older device. When someone pulls out a phone from 4 years ago, people notice. When a laptop is running an older operating system, it is treated like a security risk and a personal failing simultaneously. The companies have not just made the hardware obsolete, they have made the owners feel obsolete. And that is a masterclass in psychological manipulation. But wait, because it gets even more layered, let us talk about what researchers and economists call the Diderot effect. Denis Diderot was an 18th century French philosopher who wrote an essay describing a fascinating phenomenon in his own life. He received a beautiful new scarlet dressing gown as a gift, and almost immediately, everything else in his apartment started to look shabby by comparison. His old rug, his writing desk, his books, none of them had changed, but the presence of one new, beautiful thing made everything around it look worse. He ended up replacing almost everything he owned, spending money he did not have, chasing a sense of completeness that kept moving further away. Sound familiar? You upgrade your phone, now your laptop looks outdated. You upgrade your laptop, now your tablet feels slow. You get a new smart TV, now your old sound system sounds weak by comparison. The companies understand the Diderot effect deeply. This is why product ecosystems exist. Apple, Google, Samsung, they do not just want to sell you one device, they want to sell you a life, a coordinated, aesthetically unified, constantly updating life where every new product creates dissatisfaction with every old product you already own. The ecosystem is not about convenience. The ecosystem is about making you feel incomplete until you own all of it, and then making you feel incomplete again when the new version launches. Let me give you a concrete example that will make this crystal clear. Think about what happens every single September when a major smartphone manufacturer holds a product event. Months before the event, there are leaks, rumors, excitement. The media covers the anticipated features obsessively. Then the event happens. The new phone is announced. It has a slightly better camera, slightly faster processor, a new color option, and some software feature that sounds impressive in a keynote, but that you will use approximately twice in your life. And then something remarkable happens. Millions of people look at their current phone and feel disappointed. Not because their phone stopped working, but because something shinier now exists. The announcement itself is the obsolescence trigger. The phone in your pocket has not changed, but your perception of it has, completely and instantly. This is not accidental marketing. This is applied psychology at industrial scale. There's a concept in behavioral economics called loss aversion, the idea that humans feel losses more intensely than equivalent gains. Companies use this by framing the absence of new features as a loss rather than simply the absence of a gain. You are not just missing out on the new camera, you are losing ground. You are falling behind. You are being left out. The language of tech marketing is saturated with this framing. Words like upgrade, next generation, revolutionary, left behind, future-proof. These are not descriptive words. They are emotional triggers designed to make your current device feel like a step backward, even when it is standing perfectly still. Now, let us shift gears and talk about something that I think is genuinely underappreciated in this conversation, which is the environmental cost of the upgrade cycle. Because this is not just about your wallet. Every time the upgrade illusion works, every time someone replaces a functional device because they were made to feel it was obsolete, that device goes somewhere, and the news about where it goes is not good. Electronic waste, or e-waste, is one of the fastest growing waste streams in the world. We are talking about hundreds of millions of tons of discarded electronics every year. Phones, laptops, tablets, smart devices, all containing rare earth minerals that were extracted at enormous environmental and human cost, now sitting in landfills or being processed in informal recycling operations in countries where health and safety regulations are minimal. The rare earth minerals in your device, lithium, cobalt, tantalum, neodymium, do not just appear from thin air. Mining them involves significant landscape destruction, water contamination, and in some regions, deeply troubling labor conditions. And after all of that extraction, all of that cost, all of that environmental impact. The device that was manufactured from these materials is used for an average of 2 to 3 years before being discarded. 2 to 3 years for materials that took millions of years to form and years of harmful processes to extract. The upgrade illusion is not just costing you money. It is costing the planet at a scale that most people have no idea about. There is actually a growing movement in response to this. It is called the right to repair movement, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Advocates argue that consumers should have the legal right to repair the products they purchase using third-party parts and tools without voiding warranties or facing legal consequences under intellectual property laws. For years, large tech manufacturers fought this movement aggressively. They argued that unauthorized repairs could be unsafe, could compromise security, could damage the user experience. Critics of this position pointed out that what it actually compromised was their revenue model, because a device that can be repaired is a device that does not need to be replaced. But things are starting to shift. Regulatory pressure has grown. In multiple regions, laws have been passed or proposed requiring manufacturers to provide access to spare parts, repair manuals, and diagnostic tools. Some companies, having seen which way the wind is blowing, have announced self-repair programs. Whether these programs are genuinely helpful or strategically designed to appear helpful while remaining practically inaccessible is a debate worth having, but the conversation is happening, and that matters. Now, I want to go a little deeper on the psychology, because I think this is where the really interesting stuff lives. Have you ever heard of a concept called feature creep? Feature creep is the gradual expansion of a product's features over time, often in ways that complicate rather than improve the user experience. Every year, software gets more complex. Operating systems add layers upon layers of functionality, most of which most users never touch. Apps bloat with features requested by a small percentage of the user base. And all of this complexity requires more processing power, more memory, more storage. So the same device that ran a leaner, older version of software flawlessly begins to struggle under the weight of the newer, more complex version. And whose fault is it? Not yours, and technically not the hardware's, but the perception is that your device has gotten worse, when really the software has gotten heavier. This is a deliberate dynamic. Leaner, more optimized software that runs beautifully on older hardware is entirely possible. It has been done. Independent developers and open-source communities regularly produce software that is both feature-rich and respectful of system resources. But for major commercial companies, there is very little incentive to optimize for older hardware. Every optimization that extends the life of an old device is, from their perspective, a potential sale lost. So the bloat stays, the complexity grows, and the gap between your old hardware and the new software widens until the friction becomes unbearable. Here is another dimension that deserves attention: the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in accelerating the upgrade cycle. As AI becomes more embedded in our devices, whether it is real-time language processing, on-device image recognition, computational photography, or predictive text, the hardware requirements escalate rapidly. Manufacturers are now building dedicated neural processing chips into devices, specifically to handle these AI workloads. And the gap between a device with this hardware and one without it is becoming genuinely significant. This is not entirely manufactured. Some of it is real technological advancement, but the speed at which these features are normalized and then required is accelerating, and that acceleration is not organic. It is driven by competitive pressure, marketing cycles, and the fundamental business imperative to keep the upgrade cycle spinning. So what can you actually do about all of this? Because I do not want to leave you feeling powerless. The upgrade illusion depends on your unawareness. The moment you see it, it loses some of its power over you. So here is practical, actionable thinking that I believe can genuinely change your relationship with technology. First, separate your emotional response from your technical assessment. When you feel the urge to upgrade, pause and ask a specific question. What can my current device not do that I actually need it to do? Not what the new device can do, not what the ads are telling you that you're missing. What is your device genuinely failing to deliver for your real daily use case? Write it down. Be specific. You might be surprised how short the list actually is. Second, understand the update cycle before you buy. When you purchase a new device, check the manufacturer's committed support window. How long will it receive security updates? How long will it receive operating system updates? Some manufacturers are now committing to longer support windows, partly due to regulatory pressure. Knowing this before you buy puts you in control of the timeline instead of being ambushed by it. Third, explore repair before replacement. Whether it's a battery replacement that restores your phone's lost stamina, a RAM upgrade that breathes new life into an aging laptop, or simply a factory reset that clears years of accumulated software bloat, repair is almost always cheaper than replacement. And it's getting more accessible as the right to repair movement gains traction. Before you assume replacement is the only option, spend 30 minutes researching what repair would cost and what it would accomplish. Fourth, consider the ecosystem trap consciously. If you are heavily invested in a particular company's ecosystem, acknowledge that this investment itself has become a tool to keep you upgrading. Every time you upgrade one device, you create pressure to upgrade others. Be deliberate about when you expand or deepen your ecosystem commitments. The convenience is real, but the cost, financial and otherwise, is also real. Fifth, reframe your relationship with the word outdated. Outdated according to whom? According to the company that wants to sell you a new device? A device that does what you need it to do, reliably and without drama, is not outdated. It is sufficient. And in a world that constantly tells you that sufficient is not enough, choosing sufficient is actually a radical act. Let me tell you something that I find genuinely fascinating about this whole situation. The countries and cultures that tend to have the most durable relationship with their technology are often the ones with less access to the constant marketing pressure of the upgrade cycle. There is research suggesting that devices in certain markets are kept in use for significantly longer, passed down through families, repaired multiple times, running alternative operating systems when official support ends. And guess what? The world does not end. The devices keep working. People keep communicating and creating and connecting. The physical hardware is not the limiting factor. The narrative around the hardware is the limiting factor. And that narrative is very carefully constructed and very carefully maintained by some of the most sophisticated marketing operations on Earth. Think about the sheer volume of content produced around product launches. Hundreds of millions of views on unboxing videos, review videos, comparison videos, an entire content ecosystem built around normalizing the idea that new equals better and old equals inadequate. This video, ironically, exists within that ecosystem, which is why I think it matters to occasionally produce content that goes in the other direction. Content that says, wait, slow down, let us actually look at what is happening here. Because the upgrade illusion is not just a consumer issue, it is a cultural condition. We have built an economy and an identity around perpetual novelty. The idea that more recent automatically means more valuable is embedded so deeply in how we think about technology that questioning it feels almost radical. But the moment you start questioning it, you realize how thin the foundation actually is. The camera in a smartphone from 4 years ago can take photographs of extraordinary quality. The processor in a laptop from 5 years ago can handle the workload of the vast majority of users. The streaming capability of a television from 6 years ago is functionally identical to a new one for 95% of use cases. None of this is to say that technological advancement is fake or that new products are never genuinely better. They often are better, sometimes meaningfully so. But the pace at which improvements are declared essential rather than optional is not set by your needs. It is set by revenue targets, shareholder expectations, and a marketing machine that has become extraordinarily good at making optional feel mandatory. I want to end with this thought. The most powerful thing you can own in a world designed to make you feel perpetually behind is a clear sense of what is actually enough for your life, not what is enough according to a press release or an advertisement or a viral review video. What is enough for you, specifically in your actual daily existence? Because the upgrade illusion only works when you are comparing yourself to an imaginary standard that does not actually exist. A perfect device, a perfect setup, a perfect technological life that is always just one more purchase away. When you break that spell, when you look at the phone in your hand or the laptop on your desk and ask honestly whether it is doing what you need it to do, you take back an enormous amount of power. Power over your wallet, power over your time, power over the relentless low-grade anxiety of feeling perpetually behind. And perhaps most importantly, you take back a piece of your own judgment that has been very quietly, very deliberately rented out to people who profit from your dissatisfaction. The upgrade illusion is real. It is sophisticated. It is backed by billions of dollars and decades of research into human psychology. But it is still, at its core, an illusion. And now that you can see it, the question is what you choose to do with that knowledge. If you found this useful, share it with someone who is thinking about replacing a device but still works. Because sometimes the most valuable information is the kind that saves you from a decision you did not realize you were being steered toward. And I will see you in the next one. Like, comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss more videos helping you with investing, personal finance, and more. Check out this playlist of my top videos of personal picks, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.